Welcome to Lumivaara Museum from the Ceeded territory, Prewar, Carelia. You will be shown how people in Lumivaara lived in the old days. Peräseinäjoki, Cultural House Pokki, Lumivaara people of southern Finland, Registered Association, the Heritage Association of Lumivaara, Registered Association and Lumi Foundation. Lumivaara Museum, Sewing Machine. The manually operated sewing machine from the 1930s is in the first item donated to the museum. The name of the donator is Aune Kaartinen. The cover of the sewing machine will be seen on the firewood container located next to the opposite wall. Farming. Separator. An alpha level separator, together with a box, screwdriver, oil, and 2 measuring cups. Cowbell. Myrtle cowbell. The owner of the bell was Helvi Saikkonen from Kesvalahti. Grain spade. Scales. Building and woodwork. Carpenter's tools. The wooden container holds planes, a clamp, measuring devices, and rulers. Forestry and communal forest. In the glass cabinet. Typewriter. The Underwood typewriter was used by Lumivaara Communal Forest and Yhteismetsä Communal Forest Ltd. Calculator. The Aktiabolalaget Addo calculator was used by Communal Forest and Yhteismetsä Communal Forest Ltd. presumably from the 1930s onwards. Stapler. Duplex stapler. Staples. Orfex. Stamp. The following text is cut on the stamp. Lumivaara Communal Forest. Date stamp. 2 stamp pads. Talents and Pelican. Fountain pen. Ink bottle. Ink blotter, wooden. Ink blotter, metallic. Paper knife. Telephone cable. The items were used by Lumivaara Communal Forest and Yhteismetsä Oy v Communal Forest Ltd. Connecting telephone calls. Tartu Telefoni Fabrik AS NO 32 Vahe Kommutaattori Scheme. Log measuring device. The log measuring device was made by Matti Ristolainen in his own blacksmith forge in Kesvalahti, Lumivaara. The device was made using stances, inches as measuring units. Inches were used as measuring units, being the measuring unit used in international wood trade. Inches were used up to the 1980s, after which the metric system was adopted. The initials MR were stamped on the device as well as the year 1933. The owner carried the log measuring device with him on the long evacuation journey all the way from pre-war Carelia to Nummenpää, Nummijärvi. Real measuring tape in inches. Ceiling molding. The ceiling molding and fixtures for the electric cables come from the ceiling of the Huhtervu shop. They were found in the ruins of the shop in 2013. The electric cables do not come from Huhtervu. On the wall. Telephone. The LM Ericsson telephone was used by the managing director of Yhteismetsä Oy, Communal Forest Ltd, Pekka Härkönen. It was the most important means of communication, while Härkönen was in charge of the evacuation operation as well as the return journey to Lumivaara in 1941. The telephone was also used in the new home of the Härkönen family in Hausjärvi. Forestry map. Lumivaara Communal Forest. On the table. Grooved saw. The grooved saw was made by Tuomas Tirri in Peräseinäjoki. Log scribe. Log holder. Log drill. The log scribe, log iron, and log drill originate from Lumivaara, where they were used in the family of Tuomas Tirri. Matti Pääkkönen's slide belts. The Pääkkönen family lived in Kilpiniemi, Harvio village. The older bell, ornamented with a rosette, was bought at a market in the 1920s. The other slide bell was cast by a familiar village blacksmith in Harvio village. The silver case of a pocket watch was melted in the cast alloy, and therefore it has a particular crystal sound. On the inside surface of the bell, the initials MP can be seen. The bell was cast in the 1930s. The bell purchased at the market and was used with the summer harness while riding in the dark. The bell cast by the blacksmith was used in the winter in the shaft of the sleigh. The ropes for tying the bells originate from the time of the evacuation journey. After the final evacuation journey, the owners no longer felt like having a ride in the sleigh with bells jingling. Even the horse may have walked with his head dropped down. The bells were carried also by the previous horses. They were jingling for many years on the roads in Lumivaara. Whether it be a journey to a mill or here and there, these journeys always returned home. Below you will be told about the last two horses, whose journeys did not always return home. These journeys were a hard experience on these fine horses. The bell carriers of the evacuation's journeys. Senni was a pedigree mare, a typical example of a good Finnish horse, employed for multiple farming operations up to the departure time of the evacuation journey. Evacuation was a busy time. The horse was kept moving all the time. The hastily collected belongings were transported to the nearest railway station. To the last journey with the packed food for the journey and the family. Finally, the horse and the family were allowed to board the train. The train stopped at Simo. No chance for the horse to rest. The family was in need of a breadwinner. The horse and its master were offered work in the building site of Rovaniemi Airport. This lasted a while. The next working opportunity presented itself in the south of the country. Timber transportation for big companies. In the following winter, early spring, the horse was given transportation in a train to Ostrobotnia. Now there was a chance for the horse to have her own stable. Senni had a hard job pulling the logs for a future home from the forest to the roadside. The summer was spent on working on the local fields. Good news from direction of the original family home reached the family. was it possible to return home? A man and a horse would have been in high demand in harvest operations. Only no rail transportation was feasible. Rail transportation to the station of the original home village became possible in January 1942. Yet the distance of 15 kilometers remaining from the final station to the home stable. The stocks of fodder were running low, on top of which the scanty amount of hay for the horse became stolen. Seni became ill and was buried in the grounds of the family farm. Perho was a young horse in 1944. He had already learned the basics of doing the farming work of the family farm. It was a hard experience for the young horse when the evacuation journey started, pulling carriage after carriage of the family belongings to the station along hilly roads, and taking the children behind the new border. The very last harvest jobs, and finally the last load for the evacuation journey. Long periods of hanging around in temporary quarters. Finally, rail transportation was provided from Punkasalmi station. Winter was approaching when the stressful journey towards the north started. The journey in the swaying and staggering stock car must have been rough on the young horse. The hard experience of the evacuation journey left a permanent mark on the horse. He never felt secure if someone he did not know tried to pat him. Perho, 1955. Manufacture of textiles and shoes. Linen mangle. The linen mangle is manufactured by Epila Machine Shop. It was used in the Mantula family's home in Ihala village, Lumivaara. The mangle returned to Lumivaara after the first evacuation journey in 1941, and from there onwards after the second evacuation journey, through many complicated phases to its final destination, Karhi in Hausjärvi. The farmhouse was run by Pekka Harkkonen in those days, and this is what he tells us. When we left for the evacuation journey after the Winter War, I thought that there is no longer need for this kind of luxury in our family. We could manage with old rolling pins. I felt like playing a nasty trick to the new inhabitants, Soviet citizens, by breaking the table boards, and I threw the fixing screws to the forest. When I later went to the storage place in Kemi, where evacuated people, belongings were being collected, I could not believe my eyes when the first thing that caught my attention was the mangle. After closer inspection, I realized it was our own mangle. I had left it in the hallway of the main living room. I naturally took it in my care, and when I later met Matti Hankamba, he told me that after we had evacuated our home, he had pushed it to the train by means of the railway company sledge. After this episode, the mangle has followed us, and thus I have been able to make amends towards it, so that it is still performing its duty whenever needed. Linen scotching device. The linen scotching device was used in the Mantula family's home in Ihala village. Spinning wheel. The spinning wheel belonged to Hilja Nukarinen, born Pitkänen, from Huhtervo village, Lumivaara. The spinning wheel was purchased in 1942, when the villagers returned to Carelia after their first evacuation journey. When the villagers faced with yet another evacuation journey in 1944, the spinning wheel followed them. Hilja's husband, Antti Nukarinen, disassembled it for the journey. The spinning wheel traveled first to Ylivieska and after that to Jalasjärvi, which was the relocation village for the people of Lumivaara, and later to Helsinki district. Wooden Swift for Windig Skynes, made by Väinö Pitkänen, born 1902, from Huhtervo village, Lumivaara. He was a farmer, but also an active in making different kinds of wooden utensils. In the glass cabinet, irons from the 1930s, linen brush, shears, wool card, 1/2 of 2. The wool card comes from Kaartinen family's home, Huhtervo village, Lumivaara. Shoemaker's tools, owls, leather punch, leather knives, etc. The tools are from the 1920s and they belong to Arvi Nokelainen, who made standard leather boots, traditional lapikas boots, and boots with rubber feet. He also repaired many shoes with renewed heels and soles. Nokelainen had a small room in his Carelia home, where he worked while his little daughter, Inkeri, would often watch her father in the process of a new shoe being made from the very beginning. Reeds, 6 items, with wooden and metallic wires. Reed hook, from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. Shuttle, spindle missing. The shuttle comes from the Kaartinen family's house. Wool winding frame. Thread holder, crank missing. The thread holder comes from Kaartinen family's house in Huhtervo. Spinning wheel pedal. Wool winding frame. Textiles and textile care. In the glass cabinet. Tapestry. The tapestry is from the 1930s and it's embodied with a text. This life of mine only blooms once, as well as with blue violets on both ends. The tapestry had been hung on a wall behind the bed. Runner. The linen runner, embroidered in floran pattern, with crocheted lacing on the edges. The runner was made by Tilda Nokelainen, probably in America between years 1928-1933. Embroidery patterns on a paper. Washing board. Washing board, manufactured by A.B. H. Nylund Kokkola. Mangle, cylinder missing. The mangle was manufactured by Tuomas Tirri in 1942. Käspaikka towel. The towel in overshot weaving, red picking on yellow thread made by Helvi Ovaska, born 1914, from Lumivaara, Huhtervo. She worked as a psychiatric nurse and was skilled artisan in various hands of handicraft. Tablecloth. The round red and violet tablecloth was crocketed by Tilda Nokelainen in the 1940s. Needle mittens. The needle mittens were made by Helvi Ovaska from Huhtervo village, Lumivaara. Tablecloth. The warp of the white tablecloth is purchased cotton, while the weft is homespun, unbleached linen. The tablecloth was woven by Miina Ristolainen, born 1895, from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. She learned her skill from a traveling crafts teacher. The tablecloth was kept on the table in the best room. It traveled with the family on both evacuation journeys. Mangle and cylinders. The mangle and cylinders were made by William Koyo from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara, while he was on his evacuation journey in Kurhila, village Asikkala in Häme province, relocated in Hara family house. He found firewood which he deemed suitable for the job as well as enough tools to successfully carry out the job. While working on the task, he made two similar sets on set remaining with the host family. The current set traveled around 20 different relocation episodes with the family. Sheet with lace embedding. The embedded lace of the sheet is crockered. It was made by Tilda Nokelainen around the 1920s, 1930s. Pillowcase. The pillowcase has embedded lace in the corners. It was made by Tilda Nokelainen around the 1920s, 1930s. Handkerchief. The embroidered handkerchief is from year 1944. The handkerchief was embroidered with by Inkeri Silvenoinen, born Nokelainen, at the age of 10, when she was hospitalized in Sweden due to suffering from diphtheria. Inkeri and her brother Arvo, participating in the so-called war child arrangement, had been evacuated to a temporary home in Sweden. Iron, clothes, bags, and other personal items. Dress. The green silk dress used to be a white, and it was originally made as a wedding gown for Tilda Nokelainen. It was sewn by a friend called Emilia Hietanen, before Tilda left from Canada for Finland in 1933. When everything was lacking because of wartime conditions, and the daughter needed a dress for the end of the term ceremony at school, the mother dyed the dress green, the favorite color of the daughter. At the same time, the reverse, glossy side of the material was taken to use. Inkeri must have felt like a real lady in the glossy silk dress, even though she was wearing tennis shoes at the same time. In the high glass cabinet. Skirt and waistcoat of a national costume. From Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. It was worn by Helvi Saikkonen. The type of costume worn in Lumivaara was the skirt of a waistcoat of Orimattila combined with a different shirt and jewelry. The women of Lumivaara made the costumes themselves, from the very beginning, starting from weaving the material. Women's shoes. The wartime shoes made of paper thread from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. Child's bootie. Men's felt hat, made in Riihimäki. In the glass cabinet. Handbag, beige-colored leather from the 1920s. Handbag. Blue leather, frame and lock yellowish guttaperka from the 1920s. The handbags belong to Tilda Nokelainen, who brought them from Canada. Daughter Anja used the blue bag in 1951 when she left home to go to Helsinki to earn her living. Evening bag with glass beams. The evening bag is from year 1933 and it was brought from America by Tilda Nokelainen. It is made of small red glass beams. The children later used the beams for miscellaneous purposes, so most of the beams are lost. Only part of the bag remains. Evening bag with glass beams. Handbag, crocheted. The handbag was made by Helvi Ovaska from Huhtervo village, Lumivaara. Razor and case from the 1930s. Curling irons, 2 items. Hair clipper from the 1930s. Matti Ristolainen, a relative of Arvi Nokelainen, trusted no one else except Arvi to shave his hair very short. The two men always shaved each other's hair. Even Arvo, the son of Nokelainen, experienced the pinching of the device. Shaver blades, gold thin, pal. Camera and carrier bag. Zeiss Icon Nectar from the 1930s. The camera belonged to Arvi Nokelainen, who took an interest in photography since his youth. The first camera was a box camera, self-made, the following cameras capturing the image on a glass plate. The latest camera was the currently exposed one, which has a filming reel. Nokelainen developed the pictures himself in a dark closet. His pictures appear in almost all the books telling about Lumivaara. Cooking, dishes and cutlery. In the glass cabinet. Pot hook. The pot hook was found in the grounds of Antti Rapo. The house had already been pulled down, so the pot hook appeared to be the only remaining item. Earthenware pot. Whisker. The whisker was made by Tilda Nokelainen using birch twigs as material. Wooden ladles, 2 items. Mincer. The mincer was owned by Hilma Sateri, born Valtonen in 1881. It was used between years 1910-1917 in the canteen of the building site of the railway. Juhon Sateri worked as a stone worker in the building site, and his wife Hilma accompanied him, being in charge of the canteen for the railway builders. They started their evacuation journey from Purlaka, Huhtervo. Cabbage cutter. Cabbage tobacco cutter. It was used in Kesvalahti in Rapula family's home. Cake tin copper. Coffee pot. The copper coffee pot followed the family at least during the time of the second evacuation journey, although it dates back to 1930. Typically, the insides of the coffee pot had a shiny tin-plated coating. Tinkers were traveling periodically from house to house at the same time. During the festive periods and occasions, the coffee pot was polished. Many cupfuls of coffee were made using this coffee pot, as well as cupfuls of wartime coffee substitute. The coffee pot was used as late as in the 1950s, after which it was put on a shelf to serve as decoration. Plate. The plate, featuring an apple design, is the first Mother's Day gift for Tilda Nokelainen, purchased by the daughters Anja and Inkeri in Kuutsa shop, Kumola, in 1943. Knives and forks, 5+5, ivory handles. Fork from the 19th century. Silver spoon. The silver spoon is a prize from a shooting competition won by Arvi Nokelainen. The following text was engraved on the spoon. TLA 1927 3P. The spoon was used for feeding the children. Coffee pot, copper, from the 1930s. Coffee pot. The evacuation story of the coffee pot. Hilma Pääkkönen, the farmer's wife of Kylmä Farm, is making coffee in Matokorpi, Metsäkylä. The much-traveled coffee pot can be seen in the picture. The small coffee pot received its first layer suit in Kilpiniemi, Harvio village, Lumivaara. The coffee pot was constantly in high demand in the old farm kitchen in the Pääkkönen family's home until it found a new place on the stove of the farm kitchen. When the evacuation journey started after the Winter War, the coffee pot naturally followed the family to Almo, Karkkila, and Kalajoki before it returned to Harvio. There must have been a real shortage of coffee during the wartime, but nevertheless the pot appeared to provide something refreshing. In the autumn of 1944, the coffee pot was starting yet another evacuation journey, which ended up at Kalajoki. The family Pääkkönen was relocated to a so-called cold farm estate, including an allotment at Matokorpi. Matokorpi was situated outside the village, in the middle of the forest. The fields were so and so, for instance, potatoes were grown. Next to the potato field, there was a place for the open fire, where coffee was being made. The coffee pot was waiting for the next time to serve its users in the location of the open fire, one summer following another. Then something very sad happened. One could not imagine that a grown-up person would be capable of such a deed. Somebody broke the coffee pot. It was impossible that an occasional stray wanderer could have found his way there. One needed to know the location to be able to find the place. The evildoer had fetched an potato hoe from the nearby field and hit the coffee pot with it. Making his point known to the evacuated family must have given satisfaction to whoever did this. Well, the family father had seen worse, such as losing his home district not that long ago. The coffee pot was too valuable to be thrown away. Too many a cupful of coffee had it provided, whether it be to a silent, solitary drinker wandering about the ways of the world, or a happy gathering of friends. The local Ostrobothnian blacksmith managed to patch the broken holes by welding them using brass and new tin coating inside. The life of the coffee pot continued for many more years. After a good while, the coffee pot was once again moving houses, this time towards the south. Over the years, the coffee pot has been traveling around all over the south of Finland, at some stage losing its original lid. The design of the replacing lid is the same as of the original one, although it's not quite as tight. The brass patches have been polished a little. The rest of the patina goes back to the 1950s. Sugar scissors, 2 items, forged by a blacksmith from the 19th century. Tea strainer, from the 19th century. Sacharin box, solitaire. The wooden Sacharin box was sent to the Nokelainen family by a Swedish family with whom the daughter Inkeri participating in the so-called war child arrangement had been staying. Coffee cups and saucer. 4 coffee cups and 1 saucer, made by Arabia. Silver spoon, from the 1930s, with initials AN. One of a set of 6 spoons. Tablecloth. The linen tablecloth is embroidered in a flower and figure themes. The tablecloth features a crochet lace border. Cream jug and sugar bowl. Arabia. A wedding presented from the Huhtervu Girls Club, March 1944. Kaarina Valtonen from Huhtervu, 18 years, and Hannes Kilpiö from Kuhka, 21 years, got married in the home of the bride in Aittavaara. The intended wedding day had been March 29th, but the minister Väinö Turunen had been ordered to the front. March 15 was set as the new wedding day. The home of the new wedded was in Pamola Island, Kuhka. The day before the wedding, the bride's brother, Valtteri, came home on a convalescence leave from the war hospital. During the journey from Lahdenpohja to Uhka, the horse fell through the ice in Sulasalmi. The horse, however, managed to climb onto a stronger layer of the ice, so that the journey would continue. While at home, Valtteri fell ill and ran a high temperature. The wedding guests came to visit him. The following day, he was taken to Huhamäki Hospital in a sleigh, protected by quilts and pillows. He was isolated because he was diagnosed with the scarlet fever. However, no one on the wedding party caught the disease. Silver spoons, 11 items. Sugar spoons, from the 1930s. On the wall, educational picture board used in the elementary school. Wooden dishes and household items. School, in the glass cabinet. Books. African animal stories, printed in 1927. Book series of Finnish literature for schools. Fairy tales of animals by Juhani Aho. Nature and people of our country. Joel Runberg. Hirvenhiihtäjät. Elk shooters. Uno Kailas, selection of poems. Geography and local environment, printed in 1936. Domestic science for the youth. Drawing and arts and crafts series, printed in 1913. Plays and games in Terraine, printed in 1938. Citizen's Guide book for the youth. ABC book for children. Pencil sharpener. Pencil case. Fountain pen holder and nibs. Desk cloth. The material of the embroidered cloth is linen. The cloth was used to cover the top of the desk while eating lunch sandwiches. Every primary school pupil had to embroider a desk cloth for his or her personal use. The cloth was made by Inkeri Silvennoinen, born Nokelainen, in the primary school of Kumola. On the wall. School window. The window of Tervajärvi School, donated in the Easter of 2013 by one of the current residents in the school building. Educational picture board used in elementary school. Farm kitchen, handicraft, poetry chanting. On the floor. Pedal horse, liinukka. The horse was purchased during an evacuation journey at Tervola. When it became possible to return to Carelia, to Kumula village, Lumivaara, the horse followed. When once again yet another evacuation journey started, the owner of the horse, Jouko Rapo, had said to the grandpa Robert that the horse should not be left behind. In Grandpa's opinion, there were many more important items to take along on the journey than the grandchild's pedal horse. Eventually, the grandpa had to give up, and so Yoko's horse followed on the evacuation journey. Church. Glass cabinet. Banner. The blue and white banner was used together with other similar banners when Lumivaara Church was inaugurated on the July 7th, 1935. Angel. The angel was made of the broken glass of the window panes of Lumivaara Church. Part of the window frame of the church. Black and white picture of the inside of the church. Color picture of the church at its present state. Blueprint. Blueprint of Lumivaara Church. 1. The gallery. 2. Facade and recesses cross sections. 3. The facades. The drawing are from the year 1934. The designer, Ilmari Launis. Window, from Lumivaara Church. Watercolor painting. A copy of the altarpiece of Lumivaara Church, painted by Inkari Silvennoinen. Harmonium and bench. The Lumivaara Church, built in 1935, did not have a real organ. Instead, the harmonium was used. The type of the harmonium is the same as the ones commonly used in elementary schools. A new organ had already been ordered from Kangasala organ manufacturers, but it was never delivered as the final departure from Lumivaara came first. The harmonium was rescued when Matti Kaartinen, alias Viinakurus Matti, took it with him on the evacuation journey. He had a musical talent and worked as the harmonium player in Lumivaara Church during the Continuation War. Communication. Radio, from Huhtervu Nursing Home in the corner. Magazine. Kotoliesi, from the year 1944. Glass cabinet. Telephone catalogue of Sortavala. The telephone catalogue from the year 1943 includes the phone numbers of Lumivaara municipality and certain other municipalities. According to Olavi Livonen from Kostamojärvi, the catalogue has a limited amount of telephone numbers because Lumivaara belonged to the military area at the same time. Postal forms. Label of a matchbox. TMI-KN Vepsä Lumivaara. Stamp. The following text is cut on the stamp. Jaakkimaan osuuskauppa Jaakkimaa Co-op. Brochure. The brochure contains timetables of trains and buses as well as ship transportation on Lake Ladoga. Letters and franked stamps. Various francs from Lumivaara. The archipelago mail service was shared by 3 villages: Kalksalo, Kesvalahti, and Kuhka. Pekka Ristolainen from Kesvalahti and his family was in charge of it since Finland became independent. On the wall, map of Finland, the borders of the country in 1940. Bicycle rim, wooden. Chair. The owner's name is marked underneath the seat as follows: Helvi Saikkonen, Lumivaara, Kesvalahti. Station of departure, Ihala. Destination, Nivala, 437. The text in the reverse direction, 156. Between the glass cabinets, tube radio. The Philips tube radio from the year 1932 is from the Kesseli family's house in Tervajärvi. The radio was sold to the family by Sergei Ivanov, later Lilahti. Glass cabinet. Christmas present box. The cardboard box is from the year 1932. Tilda Nokelainen brought the box from America. The children in the Nokelainen family remember the box from the early childhood in Carelia. They found the exceptionally colorful box quite unusual. Glossy pictures. The pictures are from the year 1944-1946. They were Inkeri Silvennoinen, born Nokelainen, Christmas presents from the time she spent in Sweden, participating in so-called war child arrangement. The round picture of an angel has been used as a decoration on a Christmas tree. Christmas cards. It was customary to give one's classmates a Christmas card for the end of autumn term ceremony. Mother's Day cards. Poetry album. The album has a text: Christmas 1947, Inkeri Nokelainen, 2nd, 3rd class. The album contains verses written by classmates and friends. Binoculars. The binoculars are from the 1930s and they have belonged to Arvo Nokelainen. Miscellaneous. Glass cabinet. Plate and spoon. The wooden plate and spoon were purchased to commemorate an engagement trip to Valamo. The newly engaged couple, Matti and Helvi Saikkonen, born Rapo, departed from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. Door handle. The glass door handle was brought to Kummola, Lumivaara, from America by Robert Rapo. The story goes that the handle had been trembling in the door in the wartime while the railway surroundings at Elisenvaara had been bombed. The handle ended up at Alavus after the evacuation journey, where it started to serve as the door handle of the new house. Robert Rapo, born 1882, visited the American continent 5 separate times, first in the United States and later in Canada, the state of Ontario. After his marriage in 1905, he soon traveled beyond the ocean. The young wife, Anna, was supposed to follow him. When the family started growing, she became hesitant and cancelled her journey. Most of his time in America, Robert worked in the building sites as a carpenter, fitting doors and windows to the buildings. Later, when Robert's eldest son, Eino, already worked in Ontario, also the father left for Canada. Soon the recession hit and Robert had to return to Finland. Attempts had been made to make him go to eastern Carelia to build a paradise, but his wife Anna had put an end to that as well. Robert Rappo brought the first gramophone of the village to his home. It was later sold to a cafeteria in Lahdenpohja. Publication: Fight for the survival of the Karelian people. Map book: Map of Finland, edited by the Land Surveying Council, 1927. Stone from sauna stove. The stone is from Pöllö Fisherman's Sauna, Lake Ladoga. The place was important for fishermen and seal hunters. Municipality. Table and chairs. The table and belonging chairs are from the Public Service Office. Tablecloth. The tablecloth is of overshot type, woven with red and white cotton thread. The tablecloth was woven by Miina Ristolainen, 1895, from Kesvalahti village, Lumivaara. Wall clock. Lumivaara coats of arms, plaster, and a registered presented by the Finnish Heraldic Association dated 20th of September 1990. The registration number of the coat of arms of Lumivaara municipality is 332. Piece of sheet metal coating. The piece belonging to the coating of the cylindrical wood burning stove, so-called pöntöuuni. It was found in the ruins of the municipal hall in September 2013. Wartime, evacuation time and depression. Trunk from Lumivaara municipality. On the wall. Evacuation backpack. In the autumn of 1944, the village of Kumola in Lumivaara municipality started to be evacuated, and Sylvi Rapo, born 1913, carried her belongings in this backpack. The backpack contained e.g. a 5-liter glass jar of raspberry jam. The raspberries had been picked in the paddock. The jam was meant for the third son of the family, Taisto, born in January. Coat of a snow outfit. Material white cotton. The coat belonged to Arvi Nokelainen. The end of the sleeves were gathering tight by an elastic band to stop snow getting into the sleeve of the woolen coat, which was worn under the snow outfit. Open pockets allowed access to the pockets of the woolen coat underneath. The hem of the coat has a marking 2 int 41 SA. Glass cabinet. Grenade. Grenade of a 120 mm shell. The grenade was never fired. It is a so-called dud explosive. It was probably detonated after the war, i.e. rendered safe by using an external explosive and thus damaged. The grenade was filled with amatoli or TNT. The grenade was found in the grounds of the Flinkman family's house in Tervajärvi. Recognition letter. A recognition letter accompanying a military medal from year 1957 to Private Arvid Nokelainen. Soldier's mess kit or field kit, probably Russian, with marking KP BBLB OR 40R GNL 44 N 53. Spoon fork, manufactured by Sorsakoski, marking SA int -44 54 on the handle. Field post envelope. Evacuation ticket. Destination Viantia. Signed by the police chief in Alatornio. Labels of war children. The labels were worn by Arvo and Inkari Nokelainen around their necks during their return journey from Sweden to Kannus. Purchasing and bread coupons. Warrant. A letter from the provincial government of Oulu from the year 1944. The document warrants Juho Livonen from Lumivaara as the trustee of the evacuated people in the municipality of Ylivieska. 2 poems. Booklet. Letter. A letter informing about a medal given to Matti Saikkonen from year 1941. Rules of the Veterans Association. A booklet containing the rules of the Veteran Association in Yakima region. Commemoration Medal of the War of 1941 to 1945 and Case 56. The medal was awarded to Arvi Nokelainen in year 1957 in recognition of your service in the national defense in the war in years 1941 to 1945. The letter accompanied the medal. Utensils. The utensils belonged to the Flinkaman family's home in Tervajärvi. They were hidden inside the roof of the outside cellar when the family started their evacuation journey, as they were expected to be of service again someday in the future. They were later found during a tour to the old home districts and were taken along. On the floor. Trunk. Tilda Nokelainen packed her luggage in the trunk on her return from Canada on the 9th of June 1933. The trunk also served the family during the 2 evacuation journeys. The text on the inside of the lid was written by Arvi Nokelainen, probably using leather dye, when the evacuation journey started. Trunk. The brown wooden trunk followed the family on the evacuation journey from Tervajärvi village, Lumivaara, as item number 437. Thank you for your visit and welcome again. www.lumivaara.fi